What is up, everybody? Welcome in. It's great to see all of you. Hope you're having a good morning. We'll get started here in just a moment or two. Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I am your host, Patrick Vallejos, coming to you live and broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. Hope you guys are having a good morning. Today's live stream is really going to be about what I've noticed. I guess the blowback from last night's live stream. It's, something really unexpected and strange has been going on since then. A lot of weird comments. We've had longtime subscribers unsubscribe and longtime haters subscribe. So I feel like nobody's really doing any critical thinking. There's a lot of trigger trolls. There's a lot of people hearing catchphrases and a lot of fragile narratives and fragile egos um, being destroyed by just a simple statement or um, a little bit of critical thinking. So I want to clear this up and give you guys an opportunity to address what you think I meant. And then maybe you'll open your ears and actually hear what I actually say for once. But I do want to welcome everybody in. Diamonds, Pipers, Metal Mama, good to see you. Growing Crazy. Happy birthday to your hubby. Tell him happy 21st. Zuzu, always good to see you. Zoe, have a great day at work. Thanks for dropping in. BN Mama, always good to see you. Few and far between, I feel. Frank, how are you? Jerry. Melissa, good to see you. CJK. Nana73. My guy Farmer, what up? Team Truth. Patricia Warner. Jill Moser. Yankee, how are you? Phil Bond, always good to see you. TJ, welcome in. Leslie. GP, how you doing this morning? Hope you guys all were able to grab your coffee. Leslie, welcome in. Solar Chef Steph, how are you? Jill, good morning to you. Daisy. Tony Ann, how are you? Appreciate that. Christine, welcome. Tinfoil Hat Club, welcome in. Shout out to Tucson, all my Arizona cats. Yeah, we're getting hit with that monsoon. People don't understand what that is. It's crazy. It's like a weird desert storm that, lighting cactuses and palm trees and shit on fire. It's pretty scary. Bobby, good to see you. Cindy, how are you doing? It's always good to see you. Anna Lisette. Amanda says, I listened to the last show, but wasn't well enough to participate. What Sleuth said is what I have sorted out of the mess. Thus, my position is innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, so you have innocent until proven guilty and then probable cause for detainment, right? Candice Fonseca, what's up? Heather, how are you? MF Witchy Widow. Beth, good morning to you. Who do we miss? Charlotte. Thought I lived in Seattle. Oh, yeah, because of that background I used. Chelsea Jade. Shout out to the UK. Safe travels to you. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you're having that migraine. That's no fun. I hope you can find a relief from that. Thank you, Jerry. Cheers to you. I'm enjoying my coffee too. 1 sugar, and I don't know, I guess 4 creams. I use almond milk. I'm not a big dairy guy. I appreciate that, Christine. Definitely few and far between for a live, but trust, I always catch the replay. I appreciate that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like and share. That way we can have more people join us during the stream. And I do want to hear what you guys have to say. But one thing I just ask is you hear everything that I have to say. Don't just hear, trigger words and things like that and then go off the rails. Cheeks, what's up? Good morning. GP, you be careful. Don't make me hit you with the...
Vincent, give me all you got! I swear, me and my brother.
So you got to pay attention to the road. Look at that 29-month flex. One of the first. Thank you, BN Mama. Been there from the beginning. From the moment I could have members, she was there. Leslie says, definitely comfortable that Richard Allen has been detained under the circumstances. Yes. And what does that have to do with the confessions? Remember, he never confessed to this crime, and he was still placed in custody. And we don't know what was said in those confessions, right? But we'll have people and their fragile egos swearing up and down, well, he's confessed to specific details about the crime. Well, I damn sure hope he has. Right? Do I know it? No, because I haven't seen the transcripts and I don't know what the circumstances are. And if you would stop being triggered and listen to the whole live stream that we put forth yesterday, you might understand where I was coming from. But instead, you were just a triggered troll. Fragile, very fragile. He's a conscientious objector. I once too dabbled in pacifism, but not Nam, of course.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
So after I got berated by a bunch of strange comments, and it was really weird to see some of you go and some of you folks join the team. It's like I was misunderstood from many angles. And it reminded me of a scene from Black Sheep. So let me pull that up. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, so now the bird, not sure what type of bird that is. Maybe it's an eagle. Now that represents critical thinking. And this huge boulder represents your fragile narrative or your fragile ego. And after reading all these strange comments, this is the scene that came to mind. And I just had to share it with you guys. Take a look. So one piece of critical thinking, if that can destroy your entire narrative, you got bigger problems, guys. Bigger problems. And another thing that frustrates me is we have people that say, "Oh, on that side," or pro prosecution or pro defense. What is that? That's very strange to me. And I don't want to have any part of that. I guess you could call it tribalism. I'm not quite sure what you call it, but it's fucking weird. Just blindly listening to Nick McClelland or blindly listening to the defense team, aka the defense daddies. Like, it's not about teams. There should be no teams. And I understand that you need the prosecution and you need to support the investigators in order to get a conviction. That doesn't mean that they're right or that they're good people, right? And I understand that you want justice for Abby and Libby and you don't want an innocent man going to prison. But that doesn't mean that he's innocent. Just because slick defense attorneys tell you so, or they put forth all this information that really is just feeding into your biases that existed already. So if you guys could please participate in the poll. The question was, what team are you on? Answers are Richard Allen and the defense daddies, Slick Nick and the investigators, or team. Like, what do you mean team? It's always been Abby and Libby, or which a lot of you are, Team Trigger Troll. You can't think for yourself. You blindly follow. You don't do any research on your own. And then anytime somebody challenges your fragile narrative or your fragile ego, like that bird shitting on the rock, you go spiraling out of control. So you had some folks who thought, this is how they interpreted my live stream. They thought I was saying that Richard Allen was innocent or that I think he's going to be set free. It's not what I said. You didn't even listen. You probably clicked on the live stream and the first word you heard was, these confessions aren't important to me, or I don't think that they hold water. And then you clicked off, you left a comment, and then you left all mad. And then same thing goes for people who, quote unquote, are on Team Richard Allen, who said, oh, he's finally getting it. I told you those confessions were nothing, that they were coerced. And I'm not saying they were coerced. I'm saying that they could be. Not even coerced, just under duress. Doesn't have to be coerced, Somebody that has no criminal history, and he could be guilty and be providing confessions that he never intended or that don't even match the crime scene. He could be so out of his mind and be guilty that he's confessing to things that never happened or that he just wants them to hear. Right? The whole live stream was about how remember, I showed you an innocent man who confessed to killing his father, who was still alive. And then even after they found out that his father was alive, they left him in a mental institute. So unless he confessed to certain details that only the killer would know, they don't mean anything to me, in my opinion. And I respect everybody's opinion. And we're here to talk it out because we care about the outcome of this case. But if you're getting triggered and you can't handle one piece of critical thinking landing on your fragile ego, trust me, you have bigger problems than anything that's being discussed here on this little old live stream with a YouTuber with 7,000 subscribers. Tony M says, what was so controversial and scandalous? That's what I would like to know. I simply said that the confessions are meaningless, until we know exactly what was said and exactly what it means to the total investigation. We hear about the box cutter. I mean, yeah, that's very interesting. If the wounds on Abby and Libby are consistent with that, right? Then it's huge. Guy works at CVS unloading trucks 2 to 3 times a week. He's going to have a box cutter, and he may even use that as his weapon of choice. He knows how deadly they are. He knows how to use them, and he would use them enough to swap out, a regular razor blade for a serrated blade. And anybody that has to deal with unloading trucks and recycling cardboard, you know how important it is to have a box cutter and one that it works efficiently. Or else you can expect a paper cut from hell or a long day ahead of you. So I'm not saying, even if they throw out the confessions, I believe they still have enough to convict him. The timeline and the bullet is enough. It's enough to hold him in prison. And I think it's enough to convict him, with everything else. But the fact that the man has been drinking out of his toilet, smearing feces all over himself, that's not normal. That's somebody that is going out of their mind. And he could be guilty and still be confessing without even realizing what he's confessing to. All he wants to do is get out of solitary confinement. That's it. That's all he cares about. He wants to stop hearing people yelling at him, right? He wants other prisoners to stop screaming at him. Sorry about that buzzing noise. I think my neighbor's getting some doing some kind of construction in his front yard.
I want to go home. I want my mother. I had your mother. She wasn't that great.
What the crisis is happy horse shit?
Guilty or not. Context is everything. It's very important to understand why he confessed, when he confessed, and what he confessed to. I haven't heard these confessions. I haven't seen any transcripts. Does that mean he's innocent? No. Not at all. TJ says, whether the confessions are false, true, or otherwise, I do think it's bullshit that they'd get to use them in court if they already had enough imprison him in pretrial. Well, the thing is just because you have enough to detain somebody or imprison them doesn't mean that you're going to turn away any new evidence. So if he's sitting there confessing, let's say he was calm and he's sitting down and he's talking to his doctor or somebody that's watching him, a guard, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I did kill those girls. And he gives certain details and he's speaking to them calmly. But if he's out of his mind and he's covered in shit and he's like, I shot the girls, or yeah, I killed them and I used a box cutter and I did all this, just telling them what they want to hear. His most recent, when he came to those hearings, those 3-day hearings, he was talking to guards. The reason he was excited because he was anticipating being let out of that jail and going somewhere closer to home. That's going to give him some release. And I think it's better that he's in those conditions and to get a confession under those circumstances than him being in solitary confinement and appearing to be under psychosis and things like that. That's what I want. I want a real confession because I believe that it's coming. I believe here tomorrow will be the beginning of negotiations for a plea deal because I do believe that Richard Allen is guilty if they can prove that that's his bullet, right? The timeline alone is enough to probably convict. The fact that he looks like the bridge guy, the fact that he admits to being there and being dressed like the bridge guy, that's enough to convict him right there, depending on the jury. But in your mind is what I'm saying. If you're convicting this man in your mind based on the fact that you heard that he confessed 60 times, I just don't think you're being honest with yourself, if anything. To thine own self be true. Thank you, BN. And as far as this, I disagree with the people on the other side. What other side? There are no sides to this. There's no duality here. There's no yin and yang. There's no as above, so below. There's none of that shit. There's no defense versus the prosecution. There's only Abby and Libby and her family and her friends that are suffering the loss of those two beautiful girls. There's absolutely no reason for what happened. There's nothing that those girls could do that would warrant that outcome. Nothing. Yeah, and I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm not stating any facts. I'm just telling you what my opinion is. And in return, I'll hear you out as well. But you can't make things up like, oh, well, he's saying he's providing details that only the killer would know. Okay, well, how do you know the details? If only the killer would know the details, how is it that you know what he's saying is factual? So if you know, then it's possible that Richard Allen knows, or maybe it's just the fact that you don't know and you're assuming. And that's something that I don't want to do. Do I hope that he's providing detailed information in those confessions? Yes, because I believe that he is guilty. But that's just my opinion, and I'm telling you what it's based on. It has nothing to do with tribalism. I don't have a crush on Slick Nick. And I'm not really a big fan of law enforcement, honestly. As much as I support them and know that we need them, I'm just not a big fan. We hear things like, the pro-prosecution or them over there. Team Richard Allen. I can't wrap my head around it. And if this is you over here in the blue, or if this is you over here in the red, it's all good. But guess who I am? I'm the guy right there in the middle. I want justice for Abby and Libby. That's it. And all victims in these cases. So I'm done with the sheep. It's time for you guys to start thinking for yourselves. Welcome in, Darlene. Hannah says the prosecution must have a lot more than we know, but what do they have? Well, I can tell you that, in my opinion, it's not DNA. And that could be the reason that Richard Allen is being so stubborn, because he knows, and it could also explain a whole lot about the crime scene. It doesn't take an hour and 45 minutes to throw 8 sticks on top of 2 people, right? Especially when the sticks are readily available right there. They're scattered all over the place. It would literally take less than a minute to cover those girls the way he did. But now, if you're out there doing something disgusting, or if you've been wrestling with somebody and your DNA is just completely all over them, you might want to take some time to take each article of clothing and clean it off, right? And the things that these criminals do at a crime scene is going to tell us a whole lot about them and their psychology. That's how they get caught. They get profiled. So it was very important, in my opinion, that Richard Allen redressed these girls, or that they were found completely clothed. It was important to him to hide the fact that his motivation was sexual assault, or that he did actually do something disgusting. It's the very reason he killed the girls, I think. He panicked. He couldn't control himself, and he simply panicked. And also, the reason why he's being so stubborn today is the same reason he killed those girls. He doesn't want the embarrassment of his family. The 2 people, well, maybe 3, his mom, his wife, and his daughter. Women. It's my understanding he was abandoned by his father. He didn't know his birth father, really, even though he lived 10 miles away. And the person who raised him was a very important person in Mexico, Indiana. He was the principal of a school. All the sources that I've talked to said that he was a very important guy in that small community. And when this is all said and done, I guarantee you guys we're going to hear about traumas in Richard Allen's childhood. Maybe even, from some of those individuals that raised him. And that's just based off the information that I was provided by people who grew up with him, telling me that he was the quietest guy that they've ever met. CJK says, I want to hear the confessions and all that he said, and then know if the evidence corroborates the confessions. So do I. Regardless, I believe he's the guy. Exactly. And that's the whole point, is the prosecution, they don't need those confessions. But just like law enforcement and the prosecutor, they love a confession, right? It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. If you're on the edge of guilty or not guilty, that confession could be the feather that lands on, or that little piece of straw, right? That breaks the floodgates. Miss Thang with the 27-month flex. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you guys for supporting my channel. It means a lot to me. Hey, man, there's a beverage here. Nice. Jill says, missed yesterday's show. We'll have to go back. Yeah, I thought it was a really good show, but unfortunately, a lot of people got triggered by it. Because one thing, they don't listen. They don't think for themselves. And they're part of these Bloods and Crips. They're not here for Abby or Libby. Or the victims, or the victims' families, for that matter. They're not. They're here because of their ego. They've determined what they believe is right, and you're not going to challenge that. And then they go and join the group that thinks just like them. And I really didn't understand how big of a part I was in all of that. But I want you guys to know right now, I'm not on either side of that. I'm riding for Abby and Libby and victims in these crimes and the families who have to suffer the nuclear fallout that hasn't ended. This live stream is still part of that fallout. But unfortunately, we can't ignore it. And what are we all going to do? Be obsessed about it in quiet? In secret? No. We all just want to understand how this is possible, how this could happen. We don't want it to happen to us. Miss Mala says, "Why would you get berated?" Well, for one, people didn't hear me out. They didn't even watch the entire live stream. They just exposed themselves as triggered trolls. They hear one little word, or they hear a phrase or a statement that I made. Right? We don't know anything about these confessions. But because you're biased and you've already convicted this man in your head, when you hear 61 confessions, you're like, see, I told you. A guy who confesses 60 plus times is not innocent. And I'm here to tell you that that's just not true. It's not checkers, guys. And if you can't understand that, that does not mean that he's innocent or guilty. It just means that if you put an innocent man or a guilty man under certain circumstances, he will confess to anything. In the examples that I showed you, a man spent 5 years in prison and confessed to killing his own daughter. Imagine how sick you would have to be to confess to something like that. These investigators kept him in an interrogation room for 48 hours. They made him sleep on the floor. They wrote out the statement for him. And then when they videotaped it, they said, "Is this your statement?" He said, "Yes." "Will you read it?" He tried to read it. He spent 5 years in jail awaiting trial. He was never convicted. He was locked up for 5 years. And after 2, they already knew that they had another suspect whose DNA they found inside of one of the victims. They already knew that he wasn't guilty. Instead of letting the man out and then conducting their investigation, they kept him for another 3 years. Yeah, he won a $9 million settlement, but you couldn't pay me 9 years to be locked up for 5 years and confessing to killing my own daughter. His family, the hatred, the negative energy towards him, it's disgusting. Does that mean Richard Allen is innocent? No, because they have all this other evidence against him. They have the timeline. They have witnesses. They have witnesses that say the man that they saw was the guy on the bridge. Well, the witnesses that saw the guy on the bridge, Richard Allen says, "Hey, yeah, I saw them at the same time that they saw me." So he's literally admitting to being the guy on the bridge. Now, if they can prove that that bullet was ejected from his firearm, yeah, he's probably going to prison. Brad, good to see you. Fragile egos. It's definitely interesting to watch. Miss Mala, I just want the truth and justice for Libby and Abby. That's it. That's it. And it has nothing to do with being pro prosecution or pro defense daddies. Because if you're taking part of that duality, you've already lost. You've already lost the fight for Abby and Libby. Because you don't care what happened to them. You just care about proving your own theory right. I've done all this work. I've done all this sleuthing and all this digging. I made all these contacts. I have all this hidden information that nobody knows about. I know that I'm right. You're already wrong. Shout out to Zuzu for the super sticker and Hather's Mirror. Thank you guys for sponsoring today's live stream. Big shout out to BN Mama with the flex, Cheeks with the flex, Miss Thang with the flex. Flex on them, guys. I like that. Cindy says, I love the term defense daddies. Sorry, not sorry. Hey, it's stuck. Can't take it back now. Or Slick Nick. CJK says that lines are drawn for many. I'm on the side of justice for the girls and their families. I'm supporting the prosecution because I believe he's guilty. I want it proven. If he walks, I'll still believe it. Okay, supporting, right? Supporting investigators and supporting the prosecution is a little bit different than following them blindly. Right? We need Nick and the prosecuting team to get justice. It's just the way our system works, guys. We need these investigators to make the arrest. We need them. But we all know human behavior. We know how desperate people can get. And Abby and Libby deserve the truth. They deserve more than that. You know, it's not like Abby and Libby joined the army. It's not like they took some risky job, you know, some crane operator. You know, they're not an underwater. They didn't take a gig doing underwater rescues or something crazy, right? They didn't do anything like that. They went out to enjoy a day. They were doing teenager things. And everything was taken from them. Everything was taken from their families. So look past your ego and just for once in your life, try to think critically. If you think you can. Darlene says the cases of false confessions, almost all are of people that had at least one thing making them higher risk. History of depression, or example, is common. Yeah, a lot of people suffer from depression and anxiety. Tony says, sum it up as this: narrow is the path that leads to the right way. Many will not make it. Yeah, the path to righteousness is narrow. It's a narrow path, guys. So if you want to be sheep and follow blindly and join one of these cults, you want to be a blood or a crip, that's on you, guys. Good luck. Good luck to you on your journey. Exactly, farmer. That's all I'm asking you guys to do. Just think for yourselves for once. And if your narrative is so fragile, are you really being honest for Abby and Libby about what's really going on and what's at stake and what kind of a risk this really is? And if they don't have DNA and he's not going to plead, then that means that we as online sleuths and those who like to do some digging have a lot of work to do. Because there's no part of me that feels that Richard Allen is an innocent man. But I'm not psychic, and I don't know what happened out there. I don't know what role he played, and I can't prove it. Hey, what's up, Redfoot? Knee deep in coffee. Yes, I have a huge coffee cup and I'm almost done. But I really don't make my coffee that strong anymore. Hey, Sherry Wilson, if Richard Allen wins not guilty, I can only imagine the lawsuit the state will have to pay. Just because you get not guilty doesn't mean that you get to sue, you know? You have to prove that they did something wrong. Probable cause is probable cause. Now, if you coerce a confession, that's a different story. Anna says justice feels good and raises dopamine levels. Many times, justice is a harsh reaction to an unthinkable act. More people hurt, but the original wrong cannot be undone. Yeah, when it comes to a murder of two innocent children like Abby and Libby, there is no justice. There's just a slight softening of the blow. That's it. The void will always be there. And we do the best to understand it. But I've spoken and interviewed a lot of victims of these types of crimes. And I just don't think we'll ever understand. And I don't want to, you guys. I don't want to be a part of that club. And honestly, that's why I do what I do. I just want to understand the enemy because I've identified the enemy. And hopefully we can see him coming. Yeah, I agree with that, CJK. Just because he's found innocent doesn't mean he gets to sue, you know. The fragility of life, their life, Abby and Libby's, superseded by irrelevant egos and absolutes. Absolutes are a time for reflection. All I'm saying is take a look in the mirror. That's it. Little self-reflection never hurt anybody. Thanks, Farmer. Maybe you already voted, Jill. Maybe refresh and then come back. Hey, Kitty Wombalista. Another longtime supporter of my channel. Says Team Abby and Libby. That's it. That should be the only team. If you're on that team, that means that everything is open for debate. Everything as far as items of discussion are on the table, and we should be able to agree to disagree. But when you have these egotistical maniacs who have it all figured out, they become cult leaders. And I don't want any part of that. This ain't a cult here, you guys. This is just a platform to give you a voice. We can't have people triggered we have more people blocked on this channel than we do subscribers almost. Because we don't need people being rude in the comments, blaming the family with the slightest bit of evidence, and projecting that, their bullshit onto others. We don't need it. Tinfoil Hat Club. I'm curious of how long those who were triggered have been aware and listening to you, because I've always gathered that your opinion is Alan is the most relevant suspect in this, and the Odin shit is bullshit. And I still keep an open mind when it comes to the Odinism stuff because there's so much that we don't know. I'm just telling you, I'm looking through things through the eyes of a defense attorney, and it's their job to create doubt. And I'm just seeing that they're going down that path that everybody's gone down that started digging into what happened to Abby and Libby. Right? The Odinism stuff isn't new. If you guys were following this case from the beginning, you would know that Becky Patty was going crazy over the Brad Holder stuff. We all were. Right? Tying everything together. Logan Holder, it was dating Abby. Oh my God. Look at his Facebook. Look at what he posted on Valentine's Day. Bunch of bloody hearts. You know, it's a defense team's wet dream to have somebody like that blabbing his mouth. And for them to come to find out that he was talking about Abby and Libby to his ex-wife. I mean, they couldn't be more thrilled. But the truth is, if you dig enough dirt on anybody, and I can point any one of you out in the crowd, as a defense attorney, if I named you as a third-party suspect, I guarantee I can dig something up on you that makes you look guilty in the murders of Abby and Libby. That's just how it works. It's called bias and stacking. Remember the example that I showed you yesterday of the gentleman who confessed to killing his father, and his father was still alive. They found blood at the crime scene. They had a cadaver dog pickup on a positive, and he had gotten into an argument with his father before he disappeared. Right? Now, in your mind, if you already think this guy's guilty, you're like, well, what about this? What about the blood they found? What about the argument and the cadaver dogs? Right? You just won't shut up about it. But in this case, the guy wasn't even dead. Now imagine if he was dead. This guy would still be in prison. Because we cannot think critically. Farmer says, look, I don't feel like I need to agree with Sleuth or anyone here. But if you put in the time with folks, they respect that. That's life. Welcome to the real world. How you even have to work meeting. Darlene, but Sleuth, info can be suggested, offered in by investigators, and so only. And so on, I think is what you meant. Yeah, everything's up to interpretation. The eye of the beholder. That's why I try to say after everything that I tell you, in my opinion. That's it. Like, how are you going to argue about my opinion? I'm not stating any facts here. I'm just telling you what I think, and I'm giving you the courtesy of telling you why. And I'm open to changing my mind, and I don't need to be right. Well, apparently tinfoil, they don't listen to anything. They just hear, well, I don't think that the confessions matter a whole lot. And it's not that I don't think the confessions don't matter. That's just my opinion, right? What I'm saying is we don't know what was in those confessions. We don't know if he's providing details that only the killer would know. We hear about the box cutter. I don't know if they have evidence that a box cutter was used. For all I know, that they found serrated blades that fit into a box cutter at Richard Allen's home. Now, that's information they're not going to tell us until trial. And that's definitely not information the defense team's going to share with us. But did they find serrated blades? They might have. Anna Lisette says the true justice for Abby and Libby is to remember them in life now. Use their memories for positive acts that will make the world better. And that goes for all of these victims, you guys. I just feel like life gets cheaper and cheaper every day. And people are losing their grip on reality about that. We're forgetting that Abby and Libby, they lived a real life horror movie. They had a real life Freddy Krueger chase them down. And there's not a whole lot of grown men who could have done anything about what happened to those girls. This man had a gun and a blade. As a grown ass man, even a skilled fighter, what are you going to do? You ain't going to do a damn thing. You're going to do what you're told, or you're going to suffer. It's one thing to die peacefully in a bed with your family members around you, talking about the good old days and how great of a life you had and how long of a life you lived, how you did all the things that you ever wanted to do. And it's another to be struck down at such a young age for no reason. Changed the course of history, in my opinion. I agree to an extent, Darlene. Unsilent Bob 420. Haven't Nick and his team already stated in court that confessions have info that only the killer would know? Yeah, they've stated a lot of things, guys. That's what I'm saying. I'm not, and that could be your opinion. I'm just telling you, I'm not going to blindly follow these guys. These guys who sealed an affidavit stating because others were involved. There was nothing in that affidavit that suggested others were involved. So why did they seal it? Well, we found out that Dan Doolin actually spoke to their suspect. We learned that there's no mention of DNA. So why did they really seal it? To protect their own ass, possibly, right? So I'm not going to follow somebody blindly. There's always a variable, and that variable is the human element. We are all motivated. We all have our own motivations to do what we're doing and why we do what we do. Miss Mala says, so many rumors in the beginning, but I thought law enforcement was initially looking at stores that sold weapons, looking for a serrated knife. Well, they never mentioned serrated. The rumor was that it was a hooked blade, like a gutting knife. So it's like we always have about 5% of the truth, and then we go around spreading rumors about it. We'll do a little bit of investigating, and then our ego takes over. Oh, well, look what I uncovered. Look what I found. This supports my narrative. So I'm going to go out and push it, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of stretch the facts a little bit. And then it's like a brush fire. Darlene says, the battle of experts we won't get to watch. Which expert on the bullet is more believable? Well, one thing that I did hear was that the defense team brought in their own experts and they agreed with the prosecution. So they dumped them. Well, once they dumped them, they accidentally made public the experts that they used. And Nick was going to bring them in on his side. And he, and that's what they're able to do. But ethically, he chose not to. At first, he was like, well, since you guys are going to be playing dirty, we're going to play dirty. Because legally, he can do that. You know, he can't go digging for the ex parte information. But if these numbnuts over here make it public, he doesn't have a duty to ignore that. You're telling me that the experts that you hired ex parte agree with me and you release their names? Well, guess what? They're going to now be my experts. And I get to sit in the courtroom and say, hey, these were the defense attorney's experts. And guess what? They agree with me that that bullet came out of that gun. I think Nick has every right to do that, but he chose not to for ethical reasons. That says a lot right there. You know, he gets some points for that for sure. Leslie, can you tell by the bridge picture of BG's wearing gloves? No, I can't tell. I cannot tell. It looks like it might just be his hands. But he could be wearing gloves. I don't know about any of that, Darlene. Sorry. CJK says the unspent shell is legit. You can tie it to a specific firearm. Yeah, and it's not admissible in most, well, I wouldn't say most, but in some states. But me personally, just, I've been around firearms my entire life. Been looking into true crime cases where convictions were made based off of ballistic information. Yeah, it's definitely real. It is real. GP says he cannot get out of solitary confinement. If they would stick him in general pop, he would have already been taken out. I agree with that. You know, these people are looking for specific trophies. Richard Allen would be a huge trophy for anybody. And these people in prison, when they hear about pedophiles and child killers, do you really think they give a shit about kids? Most of these guys don't care about kids. They just know that that's a good reason for them to kill, and there won't be a whole lot of blowback. Nobody's going to shed any tears, for a convicted killer or a convicted child molester. But do you really think they care? No. They just looking for a reason to do harm. They're not admirable. Oh, I killed my cellmate because he told me he was a child killer. Oh, yeah. Well, what are you in prison for? Oh, I killed my wife and her family. Or I killed an innocent man or multiple people. Okay, so you're better than that person? I don't think that's legal. Good, Daisy. Good. And I'm sorry I'm so behind on the chat, guys. I was going to put on the timer, the chat timer. But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of annoying. Yeah, I don't think Richard Allen could ever be in general population. But he can be in segregation without being in solitary. I don't see how it correlates with the box cutter, but I am not that familiar with the blade. That is the question. Yep, exactly. There you go, Darlene. They need the actual weapon. They need that. They need the murder weapon. That way they can test it for DNA and they can test it to what was left at the crime scene. Sherry Wilson, he sure does look like the bridge guy. Exactly. They're going to show that video. They're going to play that audio, possibly, I hope. Sounds like Richard Allen. Looks like Richard Allen. The witnesses say they saw Richard Allen. Richard Allen said he saw the witnesses. And his bullet is at the crime scene. So they put him there. Well, and it's not only that they put him at the crime at the scene of the crime or the scene of the kidnapping, but he's not anywhere afterward. Right? If he's down there creating this crime scene that has been described to us for over 6 years, including photo leaks and runes and sticks and all of that. If he's busy doing that, that's the reason why he wasn't seen afterward. And there were plenty of people out on the trails that said, I didn't see this guy at all. So if he was sitting on a bench or if he was doing this and he was on the trails for such and such amount of time, yeah, I would have seen him. So it's not just the time. Well, I mean, it is the timeline, but it's also the lack of a timeline. And if he had any kind of an alibi, his defense would have leaked that a long time ago. Richard Allen does not want his mother, wife, and daughter to know that he is a sexual sadist. That is his secret. He wants to take it to his grave. I agree with that, Heather. I agree. But that's not always the case. Zuzu, I really appreciate last night's show, Sleuth. I had no idea things like that happen. Makes me feel really bad for those innocent people. Yeah, it sucks. You know, if you confess to killing your own child and you didn't do it, and they actually proved that you didn't do it, how do you recover those relationships? You know, how do you go see your parents for Thanksgiving? Who's going to comfort you? You know, it's all been taken away. Whose shoulder do you get to cry on, knowing that your child was brutally murdered? Where's your comfort? It's definitely not in an interrogation room or in solitary confinement. The only thing you're going to find in there is psychosis. Insanity, really. Darlene says, I'm probably one of a million that thinks for them to not have had DNA in the first 1 year's competency or something wrong. Well, they have DNA. The problem with DNA is it's everywhere. I'm leaving DNA all over my desk right now. All over my pen, all over my notepad, this mouse, my coffee mug, multiple DNA samples, touch DNA, and saliva. Not to mention anybody else that's been in my office placed their hand on my stuff. Maybe they blew their nose and threw a tissue in my little trash can right here. DNA is everywhere. It doesn't mean it belongs to the killer. Yeah, it's not dichotomy at all. Yeah, and the thing about the Stevenson case, Anna, was it wasn't Odinism, it was witchcraft. And when I started hearing about those sticks, that's the first thing that popped in my mind was witchcraft. It's a good point. If they had DNA on that casing, it would be that over its tool marks that they'd have out there. I agree with that. And we know that during the interrogation of Richard Allen between him and Jerry Holman, there was no discussion of DNA. There's no reason to keep that from the public. And if they would have said, we have your DNA and your unspent bullet at the crime scene that we can tie to your gun, he would have confessed, I think, right then and there. But he knows damn well he took measures to get rid of the DNA. I've even come to suspect that Richard Allen stripped down completely while he was out there. He stripped down completely and took each piece of clothing from each girl and scrubbed it in the water. That's why you found Libby's clothing next to the debris. He was using those logs to literally scrub the clothing. That's what he was doing for an hour and 45 minutes. He was undressing and redressing the girls. Now, to me, it tells us a lot about who committed these crimes. The fact that he needed the girls to be dressed tells us he was hiding the sexual assault part. Why? Maybe he has a wife and a child. John Douglas said, well, the use of the word guys, makes him think like a coach or a teacher. But he didn't get to finish his sentence. I'm sure he was about to say parent. That's what you say. You call boys and girls, hey, guys, let's go. At least I do. And I know a lot of other people do as well. So to me, the entire crime scene and the motive was simply to hide the fact, to hide his compulsion. And you don't need any pre-planning for that. For all we know, he was going out there to hurt himself. But he was too much of a coward. Maybe he went out there to hurt somebody. Maybe not even a child. Could have been anybody. Man, woman, or child. Or himself. There's just so much that we don't know. I just think the more that I learn about this, he didn't need to lure the girls there. All he had to do was create a mess and then panic about it. The crime scene tells me it was disorganized through and through. That's the reason that you have Libby's clothing all piled up right there by that debris. And that's the reason why we have Mr. Muddy and Bloody guy captured, seen by a witness around 3:57. That's because Brad Weber gets home around 3:45. If you got Brad Weber coming down that private drive, nobody can see Richard Allen, whether he's naked and cleaning clothes and moving and staging and doing all of that. You can't see that from the bridge. But from that private drive, oh, you got a clear shot. You got a clear view. As soon as he saw that vehicle, he's out of there. So the amount of time it takes him to get redressed after he's cleaned his clothing, right? You don't want to get cleaned and then re-dirty, put your DNA back all over everything. But once Brad Weber came home, he was out of there. He got dressed, threw the sticks over the girls, and he was on 300. Disorganized is what I'm seeing. And I believe he forced the girls across the creek. I don't think he chased them. He forced them across. No slick Nick crush. Hey, Caricature says, I listened to your whole video yesterday. Didn't say anything controversial. Obviously, confessions and EV polygraphs are often garbage. Don't worry, Sleuth. We understand what you mean. Some do, and I know the crew does. I'm not worried about you guys. It's just that fringe cult. Trigger trolls is what I'm going to refer to them as. Yeah, and most people are convicted, Leslie, with circumstantial evidence. Thank you, Going Crazy. No sides with me, just want justice for the girls and their families. That's where we're at, guys. That's what we do here on the Sleuth Intuition channel. We're about the victims' families, and their friends. Nobody should have to go through this. Well, I don't know about stepped on, Darlene. And eventually they were collected. You don't have to be honest with me, but at least you got to be honest with yourself if you can. That I don't know. Yeah, that's true, GP. He doesn't have to say anything. Even if he does take a plea deal. All they want him to do is plead guilty. We will give you this if you plead guilty. What's up, Hathers? Sleuth says the embarrassment of his family, that ship has sailed. Not yet. Not yet. Right now, he's just a guy being falsely accused. From their eyes, right? It could be a lot worse. He could be a child killer and some sick freak that did some really nasty shit even after the girls had passed. He was cleaning something up. There's a reason that Libby's clothing is piled up all in one spot. It's because he was right there in that water scrubbing that clothes. He had already done it with Abby. That's why she was wearing 2 bras and the wrong hoodie, because he had scrubbed all of that clothing. He probably didn't even remember who was wearing what. But I do believe he cleaned each article of clothing. And that's why we don't have the DNA. Sparky with the 16-month flex. I love it. Shout out to all of you guys. BN, Cheeks, Miss Thang, Zuzu, Hathers, Sparky. You guys rock. Thank you, Cindy. All right, let's zip on down here. Hey, what's up, Chopper? Hello, trolls. And Richard Allen lovers. Kiss my arse. Hey, Jer. Okay, I'm going to zip on down here. Andy Kane, I believe Richard Allen is BG and involved, but it's pretty odd that Logan Holder resembles the second sketch. I don't think that's odd at all. Good to see you, Shadowbox. In my opinion, the people crying about Richard Allen being in prison so long need to look at the defense daddies and how their shenanigans have kept him there. Exactly. He's there because of them. He doesn't want a speedy trial. The quicker the trial comes, the quicker he becomes faced with the reality of it all. And the reason he killed the girls is to avoid that reality. So the same thing that motivated him to kill Abby and Libby is the same thing that's motivating him to prolong this entire situation. He just cannot, he doesn't want his mother, wife, and daughter to know what he did. Because then all of those fantasies and the life that he's been living in his own mind, they get to see into that world. The world that he's been hiding from them. His psychopathy, the abuse that he may have faced as a child. You know, he possibly may have even wanted to be a better father for his daughter than what was provided to him. I truly believe that we're going to learn about some bad things that happened to him. I don't know that, but I just believe that that's what we're going to find out. I think we'll learn that. I think it all plays into his motivation, is that he was a psychopath. His psychopathy was laying dormant, just like a lot of these family annihilators. You know, they have no criminal history. They've been married for 15, 20 years. They get a new girlfriend, boyfriend, and they kill their entire family. Because to them, that was the good choice. When you look at people as things, like psychopaths do, you can shed an old family and gain a new one. Because it's all about what's good for you. I think that's what was going on. He's going to blame it on stress, right? His daughter getting married, moving out, his brother-in-law passing away, financial burden of a wedding and a funeral all in the same month. And then his wife possibly checking out emotionally. He's going to blame all, he's going to use those as all his excuses. It was all of the above. Well, why'd you kill the girls? Well, you know, I've been fantasizing about killing and raping and doing all these things. And I bet you in his own mind, he did get some kind of rejuvenation, re-energized. I think he did through his own eyes did get some power back. And he took trophies to relive that. So every time he loses control, he gets to relive that crime. He doesn't have to have a criminal history. A lot of these family annihilators who suffer from psychopathy, they didn't have a criminal history. They didn't have a violent past. Thank you, Farmer. Good to see you, V. Welcome in. Always good to see you. All right, let's zip on down here because we're going to get out of here, guys. Sorry if I missed your comment. If there's anything that I missed and you really want to get it to me, shoot me an email at sleuthintuition@gmail.com. I just want to make sure we're saying hi to everybody. Fight for Justice, welcome in. Yep, and if you guys want to support the channel financially, you can. I appreciate all of you who have and continue to do so. You make a lot of this possible. The channel is evolving. We're doing more. We're covering more and more cases. You guys make that possible. Let's go to TJ. Whatever happened to the Tommy Perez cops? Please, God, tell me they didn't just get a 2-week paid leave of absence while the department investigated itself. I'm not sure. We're definitely going to do a follow-up on that live stream because I'm curious. I am curious. Thank you, Cindy. Nope, Sparky. If you don't quit on me, I won't quit on you. That much I do know. Let's go to Cindy. Let's remember the defense isn't going to put out what makes Richard Allen guilty. Exactly. Really, they're salesmen, right? And the product that they're trying to sell you is Richard Allen's innocence or even doubt. His innocence will be the upgraded model, but they're happy to sell you the doubt. They just need that little subscription. But that's it. They're salesmen, and this is a pitch. And they're going down the same path that every sleuth has gone down that's covered the Delphi case. And we all started with Odinism. We all started by passing around Brad Holder's pictures and talking about Patrick Westfall and how they're connected. And, we never really used the word ruins or any of that. We just showed the photographs of all this Odinism stuff. Brad Holder and his leather, his homemade leather holsters, his homemade knives that some of them were hooked on the end. All of that stuff. The weird shit that he posted. The fact that his son was dating Abby. And they even went to her funeral. Or her memorial. One of the two. All that stuff's hard to overlook. But the defense team is going down the same road. Because it's very convincing. But really all it is a stack of pancakes with no butter or syrup. Am I open to it? Yeah. Show me something solid. Hell yeah. You can put one of those Odinists at the crime scene. I'm definitely going to be much more interested. But to use the same tactics that were used by online sleuths who really weren't really doing any investigating. They were just snooping on Facebook. right? They were looking at Brad Holder. They didn't even know about Logan Holder. You know, they've already stacked the pancakes to the sky. But bam, once they found out about Logan dating Abby, that was it. They were convinced. Should it be more thoroughly investigated? Should it have been? I don't know what happened with that investigation. Maybe it was. Do I take it for granted? No. Hey, good to see you, Silas. Or Silas. Christine says, two beautiful girls go to have fun and walk into a killer. I mean, it's one thing to watch a horror movie. Now try to imagine being the main characters in one. And I'm not talking about something that could be aired on television. We're talking about something that's beyond rated R, beyond brutality. This is shit Stephen King couldn't even come up with. And these young girls had to live through it. Imagine what was going through their minds. If that doesn't give you chills, nothing will. Kitty Cat says, we are in the prosecution phase. There are two teams, pro and defense. Yeah, they're allowed to be on a team, but what team are you on? You need to take responsibility for yourself. We know what they're doing and why, but what are you doing and why? That hive mind. Oh, these guys think like me. I'm going to go hang out with them until they say something that I don't agree with. And then I'm going to go hang out with those guys. Yep, Anna, we had a long talk about that not too long ago. Kitty Cat says it was testified to in court there were 100 confessions and 61 confessions of consequence. Why can't you accept that without hearing them at trial? Why can you? It's okay to disagree. You understand that, right? You can go ahead and take those blindly. That's just not the stance that I'm taking. You get that, right? I don't know why that's so hard for you to get. You can blindly follow. That's just not my style. You do you, though. I'm not here to judge you. I respect your opinion. But we're not going to do the whole trigger troll thing here in my chat. Hather says, I'm curious to see what the prosecution brings out at trial. Do they have more than we know about? I guarantee they have more. I just don't believe, and I mean, as much as I hope that it's DNA, I just don't think that it is. It's probably going to be maybe something like the animal hair that we've been hearing about, or maybe they found serrated blades in the garage that fit a box cutter or something similar to, along those lines. Or maybe even Abby and Libby's DNA somewhere in the vehicle or somewhere in that home, maybe even a trophy, and they could have made discoveries after the fact, after the PCA was already drafted. Sparky says, I can't get over how much Dan Doolin looks like the young bridge guy sketch. Yeah, and we struggle to try to understand how a seasoned investigator like him can overlook the fact that out of the 5 men that were there, roughly 5 men that were on or near the trails when Abby and Libby went missing, that the guy that looks like the bridge guy is overlooked. Yeah, so I mean, hopefully they got his DNA too. They got everybody else's, might as well get his too. Not to accuse him, not to say anything, not to start any controversy, but why not? What's his alibi? There has to be an explanation. And to me, there's only 3 choices. He's incompetent. He had something to do with the crime, or they've known about Richard Allen this entire time, and he's just taking one for the team. And he'll be, the truth will be cleared soon enough, and he can talk about it openly and explain why he had to take that. Yeah, Daisy, I don't get that. I just don't get it. Like attacking Judge Gall. You know what I mean? Like, very strange. Hather says, I certainly don't envy the jurors that might be sitting in this trial. Yeah. Like, we all have our opinions. But if this goes to trial, those are the opinions that matter. Yep, 2 sides fighting it out. Next thing you know, you have 2 tribes. And if you remove your ego from it, you can see past all of that, because you get your opinion in your mind, and you just lean, or you want to be part of that echo chamber that agrees with you, because your fragile ego can't handle it outside that dome. Once you step outside the dome and people start challenging your narrative or the narrative that you're leaning towards, some people can't handle it. Cindy Lean says, I still think the plea deal is coming. I think so too. The negotiating, I think, will begin tomorrow on that. I think that Nick will offer the deal, and Richard Allen and his team will discuss it. They'll discuss the implications and what to expect if they accept such a deal. But yep, I agree with you. Yeah, it should be the beginning, Daisy, because they don't need those confessions. I think they have more. I think the lack of DNA is going to be a big deal, but I think they have something that might be just as good. They might have a match with the animal fur, maybe even those unknown fibers. And there could even be a partial DNA match. That's something that you wouldn't bring into an interrogation room. Oh, we have a partial match. That's more something that you're going to let the experts deal with in a trial. So it could be something along those lines. Hey, Trevin Ritter, welcome in. I hope they have something like DNA or fingerprint, etc., more than circumstantial stuff. I think they do. I think they do. So we know they were looking for animal hair when it came to Ron Logan. We know that they did some kind of digging at Richard Allen's, and they didn't dig for long. You know, they probably asked his wife, "Where did you put the cat?" Or they used there's ways for them to find out where things are buried, right? It can pick up the decomp. So I think they found where the cat was buried, and they may have pulled some hair out. It's that simple. Here's a hair sample. Something like that they would keep to themselves until trial. And the defense team isn't going to come out and talk about something like that. Or I've always had these weird suspicions about his shed. You know, what was in that shed? Did they find something with Abby and Libby's DNA on it? Hey, Rescue, how you doing? Yep, exactly, Cindy. Like some touch DNA, not enough markers. But when it comes to DNA, without enough markers, they can still use it like a fingerprint. They can say, like, there's a 1 in a billion chances that it's somebody other than you or your father or brother, which is really good evidence. Good to see you, Rescue. All right, so we're going to get out of here, guys. Good to see you, Mustang. But I just want to zip down here and get a couple more. Captain America. Occam's razor seems to point to multiple suspects moved stage. I disagree. Everything that I'm seeing here points to some kind of dormant psychopathy, some kind of uncontrolled, some compulsion, and then a disorganized crime scene. Somebody who panicked, didn't want their family to find out what they have done. After he did what he did, he probably stood there for a moment. It may have felt like an eternity for him, but he probably sat there for a good 10, 15 minutes. And then it hit him. Like, okay, I need to do something here. I need to become proactive, and I need to adapt to the situation. And he knew the best thing that he could do was get rid of that. Well, first of all, he knew that what was important to him was not being caught and labeled as a sexual sadist and a child killer. Not because he cared about Abby and Libby or that he cared about those titles. The only people that he cares about, mother, wife, maybe even just his daughter. That's the last thing I want. People who suffer from psychopathy only think about what's affecting them. They don't show emotion, empathy, sympathy, unless it's affecting them. And I think he's a lot smarter than we think. And I think it clicked in his head and would also explain why he was there for an hour and 45 minutes. He had to clean up that DNA the best he could. That's why he was out there for an hour and 45 minutes. So the crime scene and what we're looking at is it's unfinished is what it is. He wanted to do with Libby what he had just finished doing with Abby. Making sure that she was fully clothed so that it just looked like they were killed. Anybody could have done it without the semen or whatever he left at the crime scene. They won't be able to determine that. So he took each piece of clothing off of the girls. I think he even stripped down, possibly naked or to his underwear, and began scrubbing the clothing against those large logs that were on the shore there. He began scrubbing them, rinsing them, scrubbing, rinsing, and then went and redressed Abby the best that he could. And then he went to do the same thing for Libby. And that's when Brad Weber comes driving up that private drive. He drops the pile of clothes that he had. It's all right there. Her sweatpants, her shirt, her shoes. Now we know that he took trophies. I think it was a sock and underwear. So that he kept or was somehow lost. But as soon as Brad Weber came driving up that private drive, he's out. He ducked down, dips back into the woods, gets dressed, throws the sticks over the girls, knowing that it may conceal them somewhat, especially from whoever's on the private drive, right? That's all he cared about at that time. He wasn't thinking about a search party. He wasn't thinking about anything. He was thinking about those vehicles coming and going off that private drive. That took him probably about 10 to 12 minutes, including the walk. It's only a 4.5 minute walk from the crime scene to the cemetery. Okay, let's go to a couple more and then we're going to bounce out. Hey, Jacqueline, good to see you. Welcome in. Rain Dancer, how are you? Hope you're having a good day. Good to see you in the chat. You too, Jacqueline. All right. Sorry for going over your guys' comments. I just need to zip down here and Robin B, welcome in. Yep, it's going to be the status hearing. And in my opinion, this will be the beginning of the plea deal negotiations. They're going to make the offer, and the defense team will let it marinate. They'll advise Richard Allen on the consequences of accepting this plea deal, and he'll make a decision. Most likely he'll deny the first offer or the second, but this is the beginning of the negotiating, in my opinion. Thank you, Farmer. So once again, shout out to BN, Cheeks, Miss Thang, Zuzu, Hathers, Sparky, Farmer, and Daisy. Thank you guys for supporting my channel. I appreciate you. Yeah, what is in that shed? I agree with that, Andy. And we know it's on the table. And we still don't know. We know that they were digging. That much we do know. They were digging near the fire pit that had been turned into a garden. They literally, and why did Richard Allen bury the fire pit? And then when his wife sold the home, she dug it back up. Like, hey, look, we have a fire pit. Why was it buried to begin with? What happened to the original fire pit? Zuzu says, Sleuth, do you think Delphi is connected to Evansdale at all? No. Could it be? Yes. Do I think it is? No. I think it is possible. I know that the investigators and people who are looking at the case with professional experience, they don't believe that. But as far as proving that it's not, I haven't seen the proof. Is it likely? No. Appreciate you, Farmer. I agree. I wish you all a super day. Jerry, thank you. And let's close out that poll. So if you guys want to participate in the poll, please go vote now. I'm about to close it out in 1 minute. Question is, what team are you on? Richard Allen in defense and the defense daddies? Slick Nick and the investigative team? Or team? What team? It's always been Abby and Libby. Or are you team Trigger Troll? And a lot of you out there need to be honest on that one. Because that's definitely you. Andy says, I feel like Kathy knew in her heart of hearts what her husband did. Yeah, and it's possible. You know, there's a good movie. I think it's based off of a Stephen King novel. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's like called This Family or something like that. But man, it's a good movie. I suggest you guys go watch it. I just need to find out what it's called. I think it's called A Good Marriage. Yep. Okay, so let's see. A Good Marriage is a 2014 American psychological thriller film directed by Peter Askin and written by Stephen King, based on King's novella of the same name from the 2010 collection Full Dark. The plot: Bob and Darcy Anderson are happily married with 2 adult children. One evening, while Bob is away on a business trip, Darcy goes into the garage to search for batteries. When rummaging through Bob's things, she comes across pornographic magazines containing sadomasochistic images. Upon looking further, she finds a secret compartment behind the garage's baseboard and inside a small box containing ID cards from his victims. So she finds out her husband is a serial killer. And she becomes very distraught. She starts going through the scenarios in her head, right? She starts thinking how it'll affect her family. So, how do you turn your husband in knowing that it's going to destroy your family, right? So, I don't want to give away what happens, but definitely go watch it. We can talk about it later. Let me know if you watch it, and we can have that discussion as well. It's called A Good Marriage by Stephen King. It's an older movie, 2014. Not that old, but it's really good. Thank you, Mustang. All right, here are the poll results. Looks like a couple of you trolls were honest, so I appreciate that. It's the first step. What team are you on? 82% said, what team? It's always been Abby and Libby. 10% said Slick Nick and the investigators. 4% said Richard Allen and the defense daddies. 2% say Team Trigger Troll. I think that number's a little bit higher. All right, guys. I want to thank everybody who caught the live stream and participated in the chat. Sorry I couldn't get to all of your comments. I really didn't want to put on the chat timer. I didn't want to annoy you guys today. I was hoping I can get through them all. Next time, we'll make sure it's on. Replay crew, shout out to you. I look forward to your comments on today's live stream. And once again, if you need to get a hold of me, you can always hit me up at sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again to all of you who support my channel, all my members. And BN Mama, Cheeks, Miss Thang, thank you for flexing. Zuzu for sponsoring today's live stream. Hather's Mirror for sponsoring today's live stream. Sparky with the Flex. Farmer and Daisy also sponsoring today's live stream. Shout out to you guys. Like I said, I couldn't do it without you. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.